So when you're working like this,
No, go ahead.
right? Let's see. Okay, he's gonna properly move it.
I feel better standing.
Then stand.
So this is your research. What's this part of the pelvis?
I'd have to look
I
at
didn't
it.
even see you down there, Alma.
It's the issue.
This is the, isn't this the issue in here? But
Oh,
what's
yeah.
this,
I don't know
this
what that is.
here? So, so from in this position, see what the ischium should be doing. It should be countering the top of the pelvis and the iliac crest, right? So see, this is where the hips should be neutral. So when someone's doing a pelvic clock, most people go from muscle contraction to tilt, let's say, the pelvis back. They either put their feet into the floor or they pull up here using the muscles through the pubic bone, whatever it is. But when you get good at this, right, and if you look at Omni, I'm not saying muscles aren't being used, but it should be more of just a counterbalance or counter that movement.
Just initiate with the muscles. and then you-
So the hips can float around that pelvis, right? So what I'm doing first of all is I come underneath here and see how my palm fits right underneath the ischium. So I'm here trying to start that counter or that tag, that waving of the tail type thing. And I work on that. But what I was doing here is right, I can do it here or like I said here. So I've got the issue and I'm holding enough for this sacrum to start dropping down and releasing. Because of all the ligaments that go all throughout the pelvic region and here.
It requires a lot of freedom here, though. Like, so is this?
It doesn't
is this
feel
where
like
she's
that,
catching
Maddie.
it?
You know that? It doesn't feel like that at all.
But
when
again,
she's
if
doing
you're
it.
right here to sit there and work, that's where you can at least start working on those initial movements. Because just because someone's hip hurts, right, you have to look at the counter. Now, depending on the way I touch someone, so if I touch them and their movements are very short, I'm going to go back here with the counter.
Yeah.
So, okay, did you hurt yourself? Did you have something like that? That I know that blunt force trauma that is. But if I can, my touch goes longer, like I said, I could feel almost like my touch was going into the inside of the chest cavity. If that's the case, then I counter all the way out to the feet. Because if someone has locked up feet, that's why I was making her contract the toe, it's going to restrict pelvic movement. Because a quarter of her bones are in her feet, and when the feet aren't working properly, you're asking the hip to do a job it's not meant to do. You can't take a single unit of a ball and socket and make it do 26 bone movements in 1 foot. So you're really looking at 54 movements being reduced into, so mathematically, it's going to cause complications. You know, so it's like trying to keep it an equilateral triangle, and that's again what the hip should do. If you look, the symmetry in the hip is great. However, if I just look at just torquing my trochanter or having that go to the ground, see the coccyx starts to wag and my pelvis looks for a different response to that. And you should start seeing the butterfly in the pelvis and the butterfly also in the knees. So again, counter, counter. I mean, Frank doesn't do it all that great because he's wired. Again, that's why I want to do the elastic version. So if I come here, look at what I can get away with now and start doing that little belly dance, hula hoop, that perpetual motion that I was just trying to show you that should exist in the human body. But it's a really hard misconception of knowing that my hip is tight, therefore I always have to go after the hip. Depending on the person, I was working on someone in a plane once and all of a sudden the wrist did a certain move. I'm like, oh, your pelvic floor just changed. And she goes, you're just a spoon bender. There's no way you can tell that because my wrist moved differently, that changed my pelvis. But guess what? If my wrist is tight, I can't do this. So if all of a sudden I get this with the wrist, well, I know the pelvis had to adjust the way it relates to that. Otherwise, if that pelvis stays tight, I can only go this far with the wrist. And though this is where you study rotation, I've had a sort of an argument with the guy online because this is rotation. He said the wrist doesn't rotate. I'm
Now
going,
listen.
dude.
This is
Oh, yeah.
symmetrical, and
Pronation.
I want you to
He said it was inflection and flexion. I said,
He doesn't know.
I know, but I said, but also that's an adult. If you look at Arlie and Omni, the way again, because they don't have the calcification, they don't have the way they transfer their weight is different than you and I do.
No, I think we still do it. Like this
We
is,
still
like,
do
this
it,
is a motion
but
we need.
if you look at the foundations of the movement, it was total wrist rotation because a baby very nicely. Now, as we get old, I've had broken arms, you know, I can't do that. I mean, what I can do with my hands and stuff, most people can't just do right off. But I
Yeah.
play with my hands all the time. So it's the same thing with the hip and everything else.
If you cannot.
But eventually, again, this is where you see me put the feet of the children here, because again, I have a different relationship here, and if they can bring their feet to their mouth, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Happy baby.
Happy baby. Okay, Frank's not too happy. He does more of a. So, but in this, I should be able to get that boop 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 boop. Same with your head, and that's where I'm like, when I go in, especially here, I should be able to just get this little, because they're used to putting their feet in their mouth.
Yeah.
Which again, I'd have to hold Frank a certain way to get that movement. So again, if I go and touch someone's bun and I'm not feeling it, my brain starts going, maybe they didn't crawl that well, now I gotta work on those kind of motor skills in a person's body.